Well, this break continues for the Flames as the Four Nation continues to roll on, go Canada. So what are we going to talk about today? Well, tell you what, Robert and I will get into something. Welcome inside another episode of the Red Mile Rundown. Thank you so much for joining us and making us a part of your podcast rotations. I am your host, Johnny Soap, and alongside me, as always, my co-host, Robert Munich. How are we doing today, Robert?
What's going on? I thought I was going to miss Flames hockey over the last week or so, but the Four Nations has replaced that nicely, man. It's been awesome.
I will admit it took me a few days to get into the Four Nations. The first couple games didn't really draw me in for some reason, but watching Canada, US, that always gets the fire burning. Canada and Finland got the fire burning a little bit more. Looking forward to Thursday night and the rematch for all of the gold. So good to have that hockey. We are missing Flames hockey a little bit on my end. I quite enjoy the NHL, so looking forward to getting that back sooner than later. Robert, before we get going here, there's not a lot of new stuff around the Flames to talk about. But we want to make sure we tell everyone, thank you so much for subscribing and downloading and listening to the podcast. Keep smashing those 5-star reviews and rating buttons. We appreciate those who have taken the time to do that for us on the podcast. We continue to put up some impressive numbers considering what we are as a small podcast. So we appreciate you and helping. Seen so far this season, both good and bad from the Calgary Flames. Let's start with you and let's start with some good stuff. Let's start the positivity on this podcast. What are some good surprises from the Flames that you have noticed so far this year from the Flames?
Well, I'll first touch on some of the young skaters, and maybe I'll let you kind of dive into Dustin Wolf a little bit. But in terms of positive surprises, I got to think that Matt Coronato is probably at the very top of that list, because you take a look at his preseason. You know, the first couple games he was spectacular, but then he really cooled off. He was a healthy scratch to start the year, ended up getting sent down to the Calgary Wranglers. So I didn't really know what to expect from Coronato this season. I didn't know if he was going to be down in the AHL for the majority of the season, if he was going to get called back up and play on a fourth line. I really didn't know. But ever since he got recalled in that Montreal game where he scored 2 goals, he scored that overtime winner like 5 seconds into overtime at the Bell Center. Ever since then, he has just completely taken off, and I would argue he's been probably either the second or third best forward on the Flames since then. Mm-hmm. He's right up there with Nazem Kadri and Jonathan Huberdeau. And honestly, I didn't really see that coming. Like, he's scoring at like a 23, 24 goal pace. He's almost on pace to score 50 points. Like, that is super impressive for a young guy in his first full season in the National Hockey League, especially when you consider the way it started. So I've been super impressed with Matt Coronato. I think he's been a very, very pleasant surprise to start this season.
Yeah, I like that one. I like that one a lot. I think Coronato since that recall, he took that personally, and he's like, nope, not doing this anymore. I'm an NHLer, and he's taken off. It's amazing to see what he's done up there with Backlund and Coleman and getting looks on the top line now. Love that. Dustin Wolf, you mentioned him as well. That's where I want to go with this one. He's been by far for me the biggest positive, the biggest upside, the biggest good from the Flames season to start so far. It's easy to say Dustin Wolf is pulling the Flames to where they are in the standings, where they are right now record-wise and where they are now in the playoff chase. It's all almost solely because of Dustin. He's played 33 games this year. He's got 19 wins. He's got a couple of shutouts under his belt, a 263 goals against average save percentage of 912. Those are really good numbers for any goaltender in the National Hockey League. And then you go and say, hey, this guy's a rookie. So that makes it all the more impressive for me. Dustin Wolf has given the Flames exactly what you want when you're looking at your next goaltender for your organization, and that is number one goaltending, solid minutes, and he's been relied upon. Before the Four Nations break, the Flames had 3 games in 6 days, and Dustin Wolf got all 3 of those starts. And that's just a lot of faith that Ryan Husk has been putting in this young man, and he's rewarding the Flames with really good, solid efforts. He's not always winning, but he's giving the Flames a chance to win every single night and keeping them in it. And he's stealing games here and there for this hockey team. For me, he's been the biggest surprise of the Flames season. And not because I didn't think he was a good goaltender, Robert. It's just because he's elevated his game to a level that I didn't expect so quickly from Dustin Wolf. You see young goaltenders come in the National Hockey League, and it takes them a couple of seasons, if not more, to get settled before they're able to do what Dustin Wolf is doing, and that's a team on their back and elevate this lineup to a different level. If only Dustin Wolf can score goals, I think he would as well, and help the team that way. He's done everything else for his team, and for me, he's a really good positive for this team. Do you have a second one there, Robert?
Well, I just kind of want to just quickly touch on Dustin.
Yeah.
I thought the way he's playing this season, I thought was going to happen in like the, let's say, 27-28 season.
Yeah.
I thought this, like the next 2 seasons, I thought there's going to be some growing pains for both, where you'd have these incredible starts, but then you'd also have quite a few below average starts. But we have not really seen that this year. He's just been consistently solid from the time then Ryan Huska kind of gave him the reins until now. Like he's just been phenomenal. Like this, once again, we talked about it last week. This Flames team would be in the bottom of the NHL standings if Dustin Wolf wasn't giving them elite level goaltending. It's as simple as that. So, it's interesting. It's on one hand, it's awesome that Dustin Wolf is playing this well, because I think the Flames now have one of their cornerstone sort of core pieces moving forward, and he's established that at such a young age, which is very exciting. But at the same time, with the way the Flames are positioned, this is the year for them to kind of bottom out. This year, and I would argue next year, are their years for them to really sort of tank a little bit and finish near the bottom of the standings and get top 5, top 10 picks in the first round. But Dustin Wolf has single-handedly kept the Flames out of that conversation. So, good on him. It's great to see. And like I said, you need elite players to grow with your team if you want to win Stanley Cups. And I do think the Flames have one elite core piece right now, and that's Dustin Wolf. So
I agree.
That's phenomenal. Another one on my list here is just the play of Kevin Ball. I know heading into the season, there was, I would say fans were pretty skeptical. I mean, Kevin, he played in a third pairing role in New Jersey last season. Didn't put up great numbers. Analytics were just fine. And last year was his first full season in the NHL. So when the Flames acquired him, I think there were a lot of people just saying they just acquired another number 6 defenseman. But Kevin's really stepped up and he's turned into a top 4 guy this year. And I know that was one of my predictions heading into the year, was that he was going to be the top 4 guy. And he's actually exceeded my expectations. Like he's been a lot better than I had originally anticipated. And him and Rasmus Andersson have made up a pretty decent pair for most of the season. I think they kind of took a step back just before Ball got hurt there. But overall, I think they've been really good. The great thing about Ball, I don't know if people truly realize, he's only 24 years old. So he's still a young guy. And if you end up signing him to a 7-8 year deal, I think you're just taking up all the prime years of his career. So I think from an asset management standpoint, it was a brilliant move to bring him in by Craig Conroy, and it's worked out really well. And I really hope that he's going to remain a part of this Calgary Flames team for a long time. So Kevin Ball is definitely another good surprise for me.
Yeah, I love the acquisition of Kevin Ball, and you can go back in my tweets, and I was praising this guy when we first traded for him. And the one thing that I really like about this trade is he's a different kind of defenseman that the Flames didn't really have in the organization, that stay-at-home guy. He's not as physical as some might think he is, but he uses his size to his advantage in front of the net. He uses that reach really well. So I really like what he's brought to this organization, and I hope that when he comes back from injury here, he can get right back to where he was and continue to grow there. I'm all for signing this guy long term. Take up all those prime years, and you probably get it at a pretty good rate when you do so as well. Another positive for me as well, we keep talking, and the Matt Coronatos. I want to just give a little bit of props here to some other players on the roster, some veterans that have really stepped up. He didn't have the strongest of starts in Mackenzie Weegar, but I think that Mackenzie Weegar's really come into his own, and people are going to look at his counting stats of the goals and the assists and be like, what are you talking about, John? This is what I'm talking about. This guy's grown in a leadership role around the Flames. He's really taken under his wing the younger players, showing them how to be pros. He's incredible in the community, which I know it's not the on ice product, but he's really good in the community, and he's really showing these kids how to be good everyday pros. And you need those kind of leaders in your locker room, and you need those kind of leaders to go out there and show them on the ice how to be a professional as well while you're playing the game of hockey. So I really like what Mackenzie Weegar's done here, and he has not had the easiest time. He's got about 900 different defensive partners this year. He's been anchored with some guys that I'm not a big fan of, Miromanov being one of those, but he's continued to perform, and he's continued to be a leader for the Flames here. And if he can just continue to find that going down the stretch here for the Flames, maybe find a little bit more offensive punch and continue to lead that back in, I think he's going to go a long way to helping this Flames team be successful. So for me, Mackenzie Weegar might be an obvious one to a lot of people, but for me, he's definitely a positive for this Flames team for now and moving forward for this organization.
Yeah, I'll throw one more name in there too while we're at it.
Love it.
It's Braden Pahal, and heading into the season, I don't really know what we expected from the guy. He was a waiver pickup. He was kind of in and out of the Flames lineup at the end of last season. I didn't really know what he was going to bring to the table this year. It was kind of similar to Miromanov and Bean and Hanley and all those guys. I had him in that mix. Braden Pahal's played every game this season for the Calgary Flames.
Yeah,
that's pretty remarkable. I based off Tyson Barrie and Joel Hanley and Miromanov and Jake Bean, all those guys missing games. I just would have assumed Braden Pahal would have been in the mix there too. I just would have assumed Pahal would have been a guy who's kind of in and out of the lineup, but he's established himself as the true number 6 defenseman on the right side of the third pairing. And Christ, good on the guy. I mean, I really like the physicality he brings to the table. I think he plays a pretty smart game, low risk game, but I think that's kind of exactly what you want from a number 6 defenseman. So he doesn't have the biggest role in the team. He doesn't really he's not the reason for wins or losses per se, but I think Braden Pahal has just been really solid this year, and he has absolutely exceeded my expectations.
I think we sometimes forget how important the bottom end of the roster players are. A guy like a Pahal or a Lomberg and those guys. So I really like that you put Pahal in that conversation as part of it. That's a really good call by you here. Obviously, where there's good, there's also going to be bad. There's going to be things that aren't going to be as good from the Flames this year. We've seen a few different odd things here. Robert, something that hasn't been as good for you or as positive for you on the Flames so far this year.
Well, it completely starts with the lack of goal scoring. And heading into the season, I'm sure there were a lot of fans that thought the Calgary Flames were not going to be, a very a high-flying team that scores a lot of goals. But heading into the year, me personally, I actually thought that they could be kind of in that kind of 20th to 15th range in terms of goals for in the NHL. Because you just look up and down their lineup, they have 3 lines of pretty solid goal scorers. You looked at Jonathan Huberdeau is a decent offensive player. He's not obviously what he used to be, but decent offensive player. Kadri put up 60 plus points last year. Matt Coronato, Connor Zary are 2 young guys bringing a bunch of offense to the table. Coleman scored 30 last year. Sharon Govich scored 30. Weegar scored 20. There was a lot to get excited about. And then on top of that, you also added Anthony Mantha. You added Andrei Kuzmenko for a full season. I just thought with that group of players, I'm there's some goal scoring there. There's some Nazem Kadri said at the beginning of the year, there's some sneaky talent with that group. But it just has not happened. The goal scoring is just non-existent this season, which is really too bad. It was something that I actually thought the Flames were not going to be a very good defensive team, and I actually thought they'd be able to score their way out of some of these games, but it's actually been the complete opposite, where Dustin Wolf and some decent structured defensive hockey has been keeping them in games and not the goal scoring. And the guy who leads the charge in terms of disappointment in offense, it was Andrei Kuzmenko. I had very, very high hopes for him heading into the year. In his last 11 games of the season, last season, he had 18 points. He was 6th or 7th in the NHL in scoring during that time. And him and Nazem Kadri looked phenomenal. They were great on the power play. And I just thought, the Flames, they now have a dynamic duo. They have a great 1-2 punch. They have depth. And unfortunately, it hasn't worked. And I don't know if that's Ryan Huska's system. I don't know if that's just players having down years or if it's just a lack of creativity. I don't know the answer as to why they're not scoring this year, but that's been super disappointing for me. So I'd say the lack of offense is number one on the list of negative outcomes this season so far.
Yeah, they rank 30th in goals for in a season. They rank 30th in the shooting percentage, and they rank 29th in faceoff percentage. It all ties into one big nice little bow. I also had the offense down as one of my negatives from the season so far. Like, you've got these players here that you listed them there during your answer, Robert, where they should be scoring goals. They shouldn't be having a trouble getting to a third goal in games, and that's what we're seeing in a lot of these games. They're struggling to get to that third and fourth goal, and you're baffled at why your power play percentage is dead center in the league in 15th spot. Like you're getting they're 10th in shots per game, so it's not like they're not creating stuff, but they're not getting to the inside and they're not scoring from the inside. They're not creating enough, and so when you're just shooting from the outside, it's really easy for these NHL goaltenders to just, okay, this is an easy game for me. Just kick everything to the corners and we're good to go. The lack of offense is concerning, especially when you're in a playoff chase down the stretch here. They've got to find a way to produce a lot more. Maybe Connor Zary coming back from an injury will help that. Maybe Morgan Frost gets himself on a heater. Farabee finds his scoring touch. Maybe Nazem Kadri goes back to being a guy who actually scores rather than just carries the puck across the ice and gives it away. There's a number of things that this offense needs to get going here. So it's a really good one by you to start off this conversation, Robert. I'm going to add to your disappointment in Kuzmenko by wondering where Martin Pospisil is gone. And people are going to look at me and they'll be like, well, John, he has 18 points in 55 games. That's very much true. 15 of those are assists. And of those 15 assists, if I've done my math correctly, 9 of those are secondary assists. So he's not really the vocal point of, or the starting off point of goals here. He's not really producing at a level that you would hope from Martin Pospisil. He had 24 points in 63 games last season with 16 assists, 8 goals. And you're like, that's a good start for a player. You're hoping to take him to take a step further than that. And you're just not seeing the same Pospisil we saw last year. He's not as tenacious on the puck. He's not as physical as we saw last year. He's shying away a little bit more from what we saw from Martin Pospisil. So I really have to wonder where Martin Pospisil has gone. And he's playing himself out of the roles that we saw last year. Last year, he flourished with Nazem Kadri for a while and Connor Zary on a line. And he was this guy that you didn't want to play against. He was hard to play against. This year, you go a lot of games with not even noticing that he's actually out there and actually playing on a line with whoever he's with. And he's played himself down to the fourth line. That might fit his skill set better, in my opinion. But at the same time, you still need him to be noticeable. For me, Martin Pospisil, where have you gone, man? Because the Flames, they do need you to help them be a successful franchise.
Yeah, totally agree. 3 goals in 55 games is not enough. And, you know, when Pospisil plays that agitation, sort of physical style of game, he's very effective. Like, I can think of the 2 games they played against Chicago this season. He was outstanding in both. Like the Blackhawks wanted to murder Martin Pospisil. It was awesome to watch. Like, that's when he's at his best. He's been like that in like 8 to 10 games this season out of 55. It's just not been good enough. I completely agree with you. And kind of speaking of the fourth line, my next kind of bad surprise is just the lack of an effective fourth line this season. I think that's really, really hurt this Flames team. You take a look at it, like, I know you and I, we've been all over the fourth line this season with Kevin Rooney down there, but Rooney's been really bad. I hate to say it, but like, I get Ryan Lomberg brings the vibes and he brings the energy and positivity. Like, that's fantastic. And I really respect that about Ryan Lomberg. At the same time, he has 1 goal in 53 games, 5 points in 53 games. Like Lomberg's like got some like sneaky good hands. He's like kind of sneaky talented. Like, you take a look in 2022-2023 with the Florida Panthers, 12 goals, 8 assists. 21-22, 9 goals, 9 assists in 55 games. 23-24, 5 goals and 7 points in 75 games. Like, there's a little bit more offense to come from him. It just seems like he's a bit of a black hole offensively right now, and I think the Flames need a little bit more from him in that regard. I love the fights, I love the physicality, I love the energy, and that's why he's here. At the same time, though, I do think the Flames need a little bit more from him. And then on the other side, on the right wing, it's just been a revolving door. It's been Martin Pospisil. It's been Justin Kirkland. Then it was Adam Klapka. And then now it's Dryden Hunt. And it's just like, there's Walker Dewar. It's just, there's somebody new there all the time. And it hadn't, like, nothing's really worked this season on that fourth line. And they get caved in regularly. They're not able to kind of stay at evens. Like, all you really ask from a fourth line is to create energy, play physical, maybe swing the momentum back in your favor, and just kind of stay even. Like for every goal you score, there'll probably be one goal for the opposition. Like, just stay even. And they haven't been able to do that this season, which has been disappointing. So I would say the lack of a fourth line is something that's been surprising to me in a negative sense.
Yeah, you don't ask your fourth line to go out there and give you a ton of points, but you do need them to produce. But the one thing you do need from your fourth line is some energy, and that's what you're not seeing a lot of the times. And this fourth line does not set the next shift up for success like you want from a fourth line. That's led by Ryan Lomberg. All due respect to this guy, and he's beloved across, and everyone and people are going to hate us for saying it, but you need more from Ryan Lomberg, frankly. Okay, I love the fights. That's great. But be harder to play against 5-on-5. Be a little bit more of a pest 5-on-5, and allow the next shift to start off on a better foot than what you're doing. They're getting caved in, and then the next shift out there has to go back to the defensive zone and try to break out and try to swing the momentum back towards the Flames. It's not what you want from your fourth line. They're out there to give your team energy, not suck it away. Robert, I'm going to pivot a little bit here on my last one. I was going to talk about something that a lot of people would talk about on social media, but I want to swing this actually over to the penalty kill, because as I was reading some stats off about the offense, the penalty kill number caught my eye. I didn't realize it was as bad as it is for the Flames. I knew it was struggling, but it's 28th in the league at only 72%. How can you possibly have any success if your penalty killing is allowing a power play goal every game against? Like, that's 72% is extremely low for a National Hockey League penalty kill to be successful at. Sitting 28th in the league, you're never going to get the success shorthanded that you want to have if you're just always digging the puck out of your net. So for me, just seeing that 72% really caught my eye as I was reading other stats here. And there's really no answer why. You look at guys that should be killing penalties, are killing their penalties, and it's just something needs to change there for the Flames. I don't have an answer for it. You have Michael Backlund there killing penalties. You have everyone calling the penalty kill specialist, and Kevin Rooney's out there killing penalties. You have Farabee and Frost have taken their turns as new guys on the penalty kill, and nothing seems to be working. So the Flames have really got to figure that out down the stretch here if they want to be better. Their power play is in the middle of the pack. You can live with the 15th power play in the National Hockey League. You can't live with the 28th best penalty kill. That's not great.
Yeah, especially when you're a team that can't score goals.
Yeah,
it's pretty unacceptable to have a penalty kill down there, and it's surprising too, because if you take a look at their penalty kill numbers over the last like 2 or 3 seasons before this year, they were 4th in the NHL. Like, I believe it was, if you combine their PK percentage from 21-22 to 23-24, they were literally 4th in the NHL. So to go from 4th to 28th with the same guy running it in Ryan Huska is pretty surprising. I think there's a decent built-in excuse there, because they have lost a lot of talented guys. Like, Chris Tanev's arguably the best penalty killing defenseman in the NHL. Elias Lindholm was a good penalty killer. Noah Hannafin was a good penalty killer. Like they lost some good players there. So I can understand why they take a step back, but to go from 4th to all the way to 28th, yeah, man, that's not great. And if they truly want to make the playoffs, they have to clean that up, because when you're in 2-1 and 3-2 games or tie games all the time, you can't be giving up that one penalty kill goal that just ends up killing you, kills momentum. And, like I said, if they want to make the playoffs, they got to clean that up big time.
Any more goods or bads you want to add to this, Robert, before we move on here to prediction time?
No, I think those are all pretty good. I mean, one I've talked about a lot, and people are probably like, okay, enough with the Rasmus Anderson stuff, but his play has fallen off, which has been a little disappointing, especially coming off that start he had to the season. Like he was phenomenal in the first month of the year, like literally one of the best defensemen in the NHL. to see him go from that level of play to it just completely falling off over the last like 3-4 months here, it has been pretty disappointing, and hopefully he can get back to form, because when Rasmus is on his game, he's a very good player, but unfortunately he hasn't been at the level that we know he can be at this season.
It's a little bit concerning too when you're looking for a big ticket contract as well as a UFA coming up in a year's time, just over a year's time here. Robert, before the season began here, we both took our turns making 3 bold or semi-bold or however hot you wanted to make your takes on the Flames. 3 Flame-specific predictions. This is a great time to look back on those predictions. I'm going to go first, so I look like the biggest fool on the planet here, because my first prediction was that Devin Cooley would become the majority starter for the Flames. That clearly hasn't happened, although he's been he really has been the go-to guy for the Wranglers, and he's having just a phenomenal year down there, doing everything he can for the Calgary Wranglers. He has been a majority starter just for the wrong Flame franchise. I went bold. That was my boldest prediction, and I fell flat on my face on that one, thanks to Dustin Wolf.
That is a big bold prediction that blew up. That is hilarious. I love that. I have one that's right there too. I'll kick it off with mine. It was Andrei Kuzmenko will produce at a point per game or more this season, and oh my god, did I ever get that wrong? Holy crap! Like that pretty much just takes away any sort of like professionalism from this podcast. For us to have those 2 predictions heading into the season, we've lost all credibility here. I just heading, like I mentioned it 10 minutes ago, just heading into the year, I really thought Kuzmenko was going to become a dynamic player for this team. I love the way he finished last season. I watched his first year in Vancouver. He was very good then. I just thought with getting an increased role, playing on the first power play unit, playing with Nazem Kadri, I really thought Kuzmenko was going to break out and have a huge season, and everything went wrong. I don't know what happened, because he's so talented. Like, he is uber talented, but he just was never able to put it together this season, unfortunately. So, yeah, I'm right there with you with a pretty bad prediction to kick things off here.
It's why I laugh at everyone with their bold predictions. Oh, my big bold prediction. I'm like, we all suck at them. I don't know why we make them, but they're fun conversations. That was both with big swings and misses on our first ones. My second one is also, though it depends how much of a miss you want to make this one. I said that Hanzik would remain a full-time NHLer this year, have a Monahan-esque rookie season where he stuck with the Flames and looked good doing it. I'm going to blame the injury that he got early in the year for that not coming true, because then he was sent down and really has struggled in the AHL to find himself a little bit of footing there. He's still a really good player, still a really good prospect for the Flames here. He had that injury early in the year, derailed what was a really good training camp and beginning to the season for him. Maybe AHL is a better spot for him right now, but I swung and missed on my number 2 as well. Hanzik clearly isn't going to be a full-time NHLer this year.
Yeah, and like that hit that he took against the Blackhawks and Connor Murphy there was one of the hardest hits I've seen all season. Like that messed him up. And like I really wonder if that's had an effect on his entire season, including his time in the AHL, because by all accounts he has not been lighting up that league by any stretch. So yeah, that's a good one. I have a win. I have like a single or a double here, if you want to call it that, instead of a strikeout. Right. I got Kevin Ball establishes himself as a legit top 4 defenseman, and I think that's come true, which is great for the Flames, because if that hadn't have happened, I mean, over the last couple of weeks since Ball's been injured, we've seen what this team looks like when he's not in the top 4, and it's been a mess. Imagine if it was like that all season. You know, they wouldn't even be close to a playoff spot right now. Like Ball's been that important, and my rationale behind that prediction was last season, heading into training camp, he wasn't able to train properly because he was dealing with an injury throughout the entire offseason. So he was already behind the 8 ball, and Kevin Ball said in an interview that, you know, he just didn't feel like he had the speed. He didn't feel like he was like fully prepared for a full NHL season. But then this summer, you know, he got a full summer in of training, came into Flames camp feeling ready, feeling good, and in really good shape. And I think that's been a big reason why he's been able to establish himself in that top 4 role. So that's a big win for the Calgary Flames, big win for Craig Conroy and the pro scouting staff, and a big win for yours truly. Huge prediction.
We'll call that a triple, and if I had an applause button, I'd play it because that's a really good prediction that came for us, and it's really good for the Flames. And I love Kevin Ball. Listen to a lot of our podcast episodes. I've raved about the guy. My last prediction has yet to play out, Robert. So I can't really call this one a win or a loss yet. We have to wait for the trade deadline. I predicted that a longer term tenured player with a longer term contract would be moved by the trade deadline. So a Kadri or a Coleman or one of those type of players. That is yet to play out. I doubt it happens based on what we've been hearing from Craig Conroy, but I cannot take an L or a win on this one as of yet. Because we've had one trade, and I don't know if you consider Kuzmenko a long-term tenured Flame with a long-term contract. So yet to be determined here on my last one.
What does your gut tell you about the trade deadline? Do you think Craig's going to end up making any moves?
I think there's one move to go, and I think he's going to use his inner Brad Treliving and go find himself a defenseman. I really think that's what the Flames are missing right now. I've talked about it on past episodes where I really think they need a left-handed shot defenseman to play with Mackenzie Weegar. Miramanev's not it. Hanley's not it. Jake Bean's not it. They need someone to play with Mackenzie Weegar. And so for me, I think there is one more move to come. And it's not going to be some star-powered defenseman. Like they're not going to pry like a DeAndre Miller out of New York or something. We're going to get our nice depth defenseman trade that we always get from the Flames. I think that's what we see at trade deadline.
So you're thinking a Michael Stone, an Oscar Fantenberg, a Derek Forbort, one of those types of guys?
Absolutely. One of those beauties coming in here and helping out Mackenzie Weegar.
Didn't they bring in like a seventh defenseman in was it Dalton Prout? I mean, they had a guy like him.
Oh yeah, Prout. Yeah.
Oh jeez. The Brad Treliving specials. My God, I do not miss those days.
I can't wait to see who he brings in for the Maple Leafs this year. He's gonna bring in someone good. It's gonna be great.
I wouldn't mind them doing what they did in 2014-15 when they plucked David Schlemko off waivers.
That was savvy.
They didn't give up anything, and he ended up being a pretty solid player for them and had the greatest shootout goal in Flames history too. I wouldn't mind a move like that.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind that one either.
My last one in terms of predictions, just looking back on them, I had Jonathan Huberdeau has his best statistical season as a member of the Flames, and he's on pace right now to do that. He's already beat his goal total from his previous 2 seasons. He's already up to 21. He's on pace for, I believe, 61 points at this point of the season. So, his previous career high at the Flames was 55 points. So, being on pace for 61 really, it's not that great of an increase, but it would be a career best for him with the Flames. So, I know everybody, they love this Jonathan Huberdeau story. They're saying he's completely changed his game and he's a power forward and he's this great defensive player and all this kind of stuff. And I'm like, it's still not enough. I get you're trying to boost the guy's confidence and I get you're trying to be nice, but at the same time, like I still need more from Jonathan Huberdeau, especially in the playmaking department. I don't know what the hell has gone on with this guy's playmaking. He's literally gone from being one of the best passers in the league to barely being able to get to 30 assists this season. I don't understand how it's happened, but that's one aspect of his game I would really like to see him get going again. But you do like to see the goals. I'll give him credit. He's going to the net. He's scoring goals. That's not something he's typically known for, so good on him for doing that. But at the same time, I am still expecting a little bit more from him.
It's a good start for me for Huberdeau. It really is. It's nice to see him have a higher career or on pace for a highest of his Flames career in terms of points. I'm with you. Just need a little bit more from you. Like the power play, you still should be able to find someone on the power play. You still should be able to find a little bit more offense 5-on-5 if you're Jonathan Huberdeau. You're playing with some really good players. We all know where Kadri likes to do, and he likes to shoot the puck. Just find him in the slot, let him shoot away, and find a little bit more success here. But I like that he's reformed his game a little bit more, and he's more engaged in a lot of ways. But I'm with you. Just need a little bit more from Huberdeau. Just find a pass every once in a while. Just please, just find 1 or 2 assists here. Robert, we got to make new predictions now. You've looked way better than I have in this category of making predictions here. A couple of end of season predictions. What we predict down the stretch here for the Flames over their final 27 games. I'll let you go first on this one here. Your first prediction for the end of the season here.
So we'll go big picture here and just kind of talk about where the Flames are going to finish in the standings.
Yep.
I think they're on a trajectory to miss the playoffs, but miss by a very small margin. So my prediction is that they will, in fact, miss the playoffs when it's all said and done this season. And I think it'll be by 3 points. So I have the Vancouver Canucks getting that last wildcard spot and Calgary coming up just a little bit short.
I like how specific you were on that one too. I didn't go as far as how many points. But if your team tank or your team playoffs, plug your ears, because I predict this is going to be peak sadness for the Flames. I really do. I think that they're going to finish in that ninth spot in the West. They're going to be the first team out. They're going to get the worst of the draft picks on the other end of things, and they're going to have to ship that off to Montreal to complete the Monahan fiasco. I just, even if Ball and Zari come back healthy in the second part of the season, and Frost finds his footing a little bit more, and Farabee finds another gear, and we continue to get Jonathan Huberdeau scoring goals, and Dustin Wolf continues to play at a high level. We talked about it earlier in the show that they still struggle to score. They don't have a penalty kill, and there's just too many things that are going against the team that they can get over the hump here. So for me, it's going to be peak sadness. I hate to be that guy. I hate to make this prediction. I'm going to go 4 points out of the playoffs just to be a little bit different than Robert here, just to put a number on it. But peak sadness, man. Unfortunately, it's looking that way for the Flames here.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. And the only way for this not to be a complete disaster is if the Flames finish in that ninth spot and they have the most points among teams that miss the playoffs. And then at the same time, you also need Florida to kind of take their foot off the gas pedal. You need them to finish probably third in their division or in a wild card spot, and you need them to lose in the first 2 rounds. And then that way, you'd lose like the 15th overall pick or 16th overall pick, and you'd get like the 21st from Florida. So like that gap wouldn't be terrible. But what I'm seeing right now and kind of what I'm predicting is that the Flames, they're probably going to be in that 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 range in terms of their first round pick. They're going to lose that to Florida, and I see Florida going on a deep run again this year. I don't know if anybody in the East can beat them. So I see them going to the Final Four, and the teams that finish in the Final Four get the Final Four first-round picks. Then you have, Calgary giving up the 13th overall pick to Florida, and we take their pick, which is going to be anywhere from 29, 30, 31, 32. That gap is big, and that's a huge loss for the Flames. So I kind of see that happening. I see the Flames giving up, the 13th, 14th overall pick, and I see them getting Florida's pick, which will probably be at the very end of the first round. And like you said, that is peak sadness. And with the return of Ball, the return of Zary, you add Frost and Farabee with that group when everybody's healthy. It's a very mediocre team. They're super, super mediocre, and I don't think they're quite bad enough to drop into that top 10. But I also don't think they're quite good enough to make the playoffs. And it's the worst possible outcome. But this is exactly what happens when you don't embrace a rebuild. So it's completely the fault of Craig Conroy and ownership.
And to further the peak sadness is if you look at the standings right now, that's pick 17. They're 17th overall in the league right now. So that literally is your peak sadness 2 spots. And that's the worst case scenario for the Flames. And it looks like we're going to get exactly the worst case scenario for the Flames. Hate making that prediction. I hate being that guy on Twitter too, where you get those people that tweet at you, team tank. I'm like, I know we're only a few points out of there, but they're just too good to fall down to where Anaheim is, to where Seattle would be. They're just too good to fall down that far, but they're not good enough that they're going to catch the LAs and the Colorados and the Vancouvers ahead of them. It's just how it is. They haven't done the embracing being the bad team, quote unquote. They haven't embraced being the really good team, going out there and adding more talent either. They've really kind of done the middle of the pack here. Last year, they really started setting the tone with those trades they had to make, moving out the Lindholms and the Hannafins and the Tanas and those guys. and that this year they didn't commit to one way or the other. They just rolled the dice of what they had in house, and this is what you're going to get. The Kadris, the Backlunds, the Hubertos, the Uyghurs, the Andersons, they're not going to allow this team to be a bottom 5, 6, 7 team. They're just too skilled to be down that far, but they're not skilled enough that they're going to push themselves over the edge here. So it is peak sadness time for the Flames, if you're asking me prediction-wise. Do you have a second prediction at all, Robert, or are you ready to move on here to other things that we want to see down the stretch here?
I mean, I have some like pretty basic stuff that is like likely to happen. Like, Dustin Wolf secures a spot as a Calder finalist. Nazem Kadri leads the Flames in scoring in the final 27 games. Huberto hits 30 goals. Like, I have like boring stuff like that, but I guess the one bold one I'll make is Morgan Frost will lead the Calgary Flames in goals over the last 27 games of the season. That's my bold prediction for the rest of the year.
Like that. I really, 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 really like that. My bold prediction that I had down the stretch here was very much on the same lines, but I have Connor Zary coming back, and from the time that he comes back to the end of the season, he leads the Flames in points. That's my bold prediction. He comes back rejuvenated, rested, and he hits the ground running like the honey badger that he is of a player, and I think that he can help lead the Flames in goal scoring. I went big again. I've missed on my two big ones earlier in the year, so I got to try and redeem myself here, or look even like a bigger fool. We'll see how that works out, though. Down the stretch here, these aren't necessarily predictions, but these are things that we think are going to happen here, Robert, down the stretch here. Talk about what we want to see for this rest of the season, what we think we're going to see from this Flames down the stretch here. They're just a couple of points out of a playoff spot, even games played from Vancouver. They have guys who have really good seasons. We talked about Dustin Wolf and Matt Coronato before he was injured, Connor Zary and Kevin Ball. We've talked about some of the negative things on the other side, having to trade Kuzmenko and the lack of offense he brought. Where's Martin Pospisil, the penalty kill? What are you expecting to see from the Flames? I know we gave our prediction of peak sadness here, but what do you expect to see from the Flames on ice here as we head down the stretch towards the playoffs, as they try to push for that final playoff spot?
Well, I'll approach it from what I want to see go down, because I think we've already talked about what we think is going to happen with the predictions and all that kind of stuff. So
yeah,
I guess it's like what I want to see, what I personally want to see is I would like to see them go on a big losing streak here. And that's crappy to say because you never want to like outright cheer for losses. But I look at the trajectory of this team, and there's three outcomes. There's one is you make the playoffs in the second wild card and you end up taking on a Winnipeg or Vegas. And like Daryl Sutter once said, that's going to be a waste of 8 days. So I don't see the point in that. The second outcome is you miss the playoffs, but you don't get a top 10 pick and you lose that first round pick. Like we said before, that's peak sadness. That's an abject failure, a complete disaster. And then the third is to miss the playoffs, but also get a top 10 pick. And out of those three outcomes, I think the one that benefits the Flames and their fan base the most moving forward is to get into the top 10 of the draft. Mm-hmm. Making the playoffs does nothing for this team. I know people are going to say like, oh, it's going to be amazing for the experience of the young players. And they're going to get absolutely trucked in 4 or 5 games if they make the playoffs. The only way they play more than 4 or 5 games in the first round is if Dustin Wolf gets 2 or 3 shutouts, or he lets in 1 goal in in every single game. That is literally the only way that they can do any sort of damage whatsoever in the playoffs. I don't think that benefits the young players. Like say you end up playing the Vegas Golden Knights in the first round. Connor Zary just gets absolutely run over by Jack Eichel. Matt Coronato gets run over by Mark Stone. Like they just get completely outmatched, completely outworked, out-physicaled, outskilled everything. You lose in 4 or 5 games. What good does that do for the young players? I truly don't understand that. And then there's like the whole thing of like, well, every game's got to be competitive. You miss the playoffs by 3 points. What good does that do for the young players compared to missing by 7 points and moving into the top 10 of the draft? There's 3 outcomes. 2 of them I don't think will end well for the Flames, and there's one that could, and that's getting in the top 10 and giving yourself an opportunity to draft a center with top 6 upside. That's the most important thing moving forward. So it's like I said, it kind of sucks to say, But at the same time, with the position that the Calgary Flames are in right now and moving forward, the thing that makes the most sense for them is to go on a losing streak, make it very clear to Craig Conroy that they're not good enough to make the playoffs, go into the top 10 and try to draft a center. That's what I would love to see happen here. It's, once again, terribly negative, but I don't care. That's what I want to see. I think it's the best thing for the long-term future of this team.
When you're looking at the overall picture and the long-term goals of what this team's trying to do and trying to become, that makes a lot of sense. And you don't want to hope for losses. So I'm going to word it as you hope that they regress to what they actually are. Dustin Wolf is doing a lot of heavy lifting for this team. A team that's not scoring goals, a team that's not killing penalties, a team that's very mediocre in a lot of different ways, that are just getting these wins out of, I don't want to say sheer luck, because that's how good Dustin Wolf has been. He's been really, really good. So a regress to the means might be what's best for the Flames here, a regression of what Dustin Wolf is and what he is for this, bringing this team along here. So I'm with you on that one, Robert. I really like that one. I want to add to it a little bit, though, with something a little bit different than just talking about what's best for this team right now as well. I'd like to see this team use its cap space and not weaponize, I guess is the wrong word to use, but use this cap space to their advantage. Bring in more assets to help facilitate a trade, to help further along this long term or this bigger picture of this Flames team, what they want to become. Bringing in a second or a third round draft pick to take on 25% of someone's salary, half of someone's salary, just to help bring more lottery tickets into your future. The one thing about this Flames season is they can't lose the vision that this season isn't the all and be all, that there's going to be another season, and that your growth is never linear for everybody, and there's could be regressions next year. Make sure you have your lottery tickets, that you're continually putting new prospects into your cupboard, continually developing those players, that you can continue to fill your roster with your homegrown talents. I've said on many shows that I've done through my podcasting career, you build through the draft. And so use your cap space to bring in some more draft capital to help build your roster. And then you can supplement through your trades later. So the Flames really have an opportunity here to do a couple of things with their cap space. Bring in a big ticket defenseman on the back end. They're in the wrong spot in the standings for this, but an example would be bring in a Marc-Edouard Vlasic type contract and have San Jose give you a high draft pick to have that on your roster for the rest of this season. Something like that to help you get a second round draft pick, a third round draft pick, and add to that pool of draft capital. That's what I would like to see the Flames do down the stretch here. Regardless if they're a playoff team or a lottery team, you have that draft space, that cap space, use it to your benefit there.
Yeah, and like be the third team that retains salary on another deal. Like why can't they do
absolutely.
that? Like I don't, like, kind of like you said, like I don't see them actively moving out guys who have bigger contracts. I just, even if they go on like a 6-7 game losing streak out of the break here, I still don't see Conroy doing that. But so there's going to be 2 retention slots available because they retained on Markstrom. Use those 2 slots this year.
Correct.
Do not leave one of them open. Like, it's a great point by you. Like, I know like the Minnesota Wild does a great job with that. And I know the Blackhawks, they didn't really get a whole heck of a lot for doing that in the Rantanen trade, but at least they went out and did it. Like Calgary, I don't know, has Calgary ever taken money in a like a 3-team trade before? I don't think they've ever truly taken advantage of that rule in the CBA, and I'd love to see him do it. I'm totally with you on that. That's a great one.
And according to Puckpedia, their deadline cap space is a ridiculous $82 million.
No, that can't
use
be
it.
Right.
That's their projected deadline cap. So that's all their accruing stuff. Their current cap space is $57 million. But either way, you look at it, and it's just like you have tons of cap space to bring in guys. Your actual number is 18.03 million. Your actual number. So you have enough room to do it. Why not do it? Why not help make your team better? Why not do it to benefit you down the road here? As if you bring in, say you help facilitate another Mikko Rantanen trade and you retain half of that contract, whatever it is, That does nothing to your on ice product to have that on your books. Nothing at all, other than, hey, we got a nice 3rd round shiny draft pick coming up in this year's draft that we can use as well. That's just how I like it. Weaponize it, use it, and see where your chips may lie after that. Anything else you'd like to see from the Flames down the stretch here that you would like to do, that you would do, Robert, here?
Nope. I want them to lose. As depressing as that sounds, that's just what I want to happen, and I think it's the best thing for them. So, and if you take a look at their schedule coming out of the break here, it is a gauntlet. It's brutal. Like I believe they go on a 6-game road trip. They play the 2 Florida teams. They play Carolina on a back-to-back. Where do they go here? Let me just pull up the schedule. Because they have a crazy thing where they play one game and then they travel from like almost the 49th parallel down to Dallas to play the 6th game of a road trip, which is just absolute insanity. Yeah, so they go Washington, best team in the league, Tampa, Florida, and then second of a back-to-back in Carolina. Then they go to Philly, and then they go from Philly all the way to Dallas, and then Dallas to Calgary. That is an insanely difficult road trip. I could easily see them going, 1-4 on that trip. 1-5, like 2-4. I don't think it's going to go well for them.
It's a road trip that's going to make or break them for sure. It's going to give you a clear picture of what this team is, what this team should be down the stretch here. You may look at it as negative, but I look at it as a parent, because I'm a parent, where you have to let your kids fail in order for them to get better. That's how I look at this Flames team right now. You need to lose in order for yourself to get better. So maybe losing this road trip and using this road trip and falling on your face in this road trip might be the best thing for the Flames a little bit longer term. Help them get that draft pick that you're talking about. Help them put themselves in a position that they know exactly what they are down the stretch here. And that come trade deadline, they're not false buying just to try on this off chance of they can beat the Canucks for that 8th spot in the Western Conference. It'll be interesting to see what happens when they come out of the break here. First game back is on Sunday the 23rd versus San Jose. So looking forward to that hockey game. And then they go on that long road trip here. Robert, what's coming up from you on FlamesNation.ca? Where can the folks find you and your work?
Yeah, just follow me on Twitter, as always, at Ring of Fire CGY, and don't have any articles planned just yet, but I'm sure I'll probably come up with something over the next few days here.
Lots to read on that website as well. I'm Vintage Johnny 84 across your social media platforms. Don't forget to follow the show at Red Mile Rundown. And thanks again for all of your reviews, downloads, and shares of the podcast. Enjoy the Four Nations Championship on Thursday. We will see you back here next week where we can talk some more Flames. And as they start that road trip, enjoy the rest of your week. We appreciate you.